You've got some data that you want to turn into a compelling visual that will make your audience take action. My name is Pete, and today I'm walking you through some tips for better charts in Excel. We're going to cover how to make clear and convincing tables, pie charts, bar charts, line charts, scatterplots, and then make sure you stick around to the end where I cover some common best practices for every type of chart. Let's get started right now. Tables are an easy way to display data, but today I'm going to show you two ways to take them to the next level and really make them pop. So as you look at this table, think about answering these business questions. What's the busiest day? What's the busiest time of day? And what's the busiest time and day combination? And as the way the table is displayed here, it's really hard to answer those questions. So the first way to help with this is conditional formatting. And so to implement this, I'm going to highlight my table, navigate to the Home tab, and click on Conditional Formatting, and then scroll down to Color Scales. And you can select which color scheme you want to see over in this menu. And I like the green-yellow scale, and when I hover over this, you see that the high and low values really stand out. So I'm going to click this to select, and you can see that Friday at 8 p.m. is the busiest time and day combination. So we answered one of our questions. Let's see how we can go about answering the other two. And to answer those questions, we're going to create a marginal histogram. And to do this, we're going to create a sum of the data to the side and drag that formula down. And we're going to create a sum of data below. Drag that formula over to the right. And I'm going to add a bar chart by highlighting the data here, going up to Insert, and selecting this 2D bar option. And you'll notice that the table has 12 a.m. at the top and 10 p.m. at the bottom, and the bar chart is reverse. And so to fix that, I'm going to click on this plus sign, arrow over the axis, and click on More Options. And then I'm going to make sure that I select the vertical axis category. And to align the order of these two, I'm going to scroll down and click on Categories in reverse order. And now the chart and the table have the data in the same order. Next, I'm going to remove the axes, charts, and grid lines by clicking here and unselecting them respectively in this menu. And then I'm going to go up here to the Format section. And for the shape outline, I'm going to select No Outline. So we've got our marginal histogram for the hours of the day, and now I'm going to repeat the process for days of the week. So I'm going to highlight the days of the week, press Control to highlight the totals, go to Insert, and this time I want a column chart with vertical bars. And just as before, I'm going to hide the axes, the chart table, and the grid lines. With these bars, I want them to extend down rather than extend up. So I'm going to go back into the axes menu, click on More Options, and make sure that I'm on the vertical axis. And just like before, I'm going to put those values in reverse order, so now the bars go down rather than go up. And I'm going to make sure these axes are hidden, and I'll hide the outline of the chart. And so lastly, I'm going to stretch these charts over their respective portions of the table and make sure that the bars line up with the appropriate rows and columns. And now we can easily see that Friday is the highest order day and 10 a.m. is the highest order time of day. And now we can answer questions that otherwise would have been difficult. And if you like this table as much as I do, please make sure to hit the like button on this video. And now let's get on to pie charts. And so moving on to pie charts, I'm not going to categorically tell you not to use pie charts, but I am going to highlight the few instances where pie charts really shine. Pie charts are great at visualizing simple fractions. So here is a great set of data for a pie chart. So we've highlighted the data. We're going to click Insert and select the pie chart option. The user can tell that about 75% of the company's revenue comes from beans, and 25% comes from equipment. And those two categories of products comprise the total sales for the company. Now let's look at a set of data where pie charts can get you into trouble. So over here, I'm going to highlight the data, go to Insert, and select the pie chart option. In this instance, for example, you may be able to tell that Kroger is the largest customer, but it's hard to say how much bigger Kroger is than Walmart, or to rank the customers in order of size. We'll come back to this data in the next section when we get into bar charts, and you can see how displaying this using length of bars compares to using a pie chart. People are good at comparing the length of bars from a common baseline, and this is what makes bar charts so effective. To create a bar chart, highlight the data, go up to Insert in the ribbon, and select Column. If you get into a scenario where you have to rotate the axes labels, that can be really hard to read. It's just as easy to orient the bar orientations from vertical to horizontal. You can do that by going up here to chart design, changing chart type, and selecting bar. And this way the labels are easy to read and the chart is just as easy to interpret horizontally as it is vertically. With bar and column charts, you always want to start the axis from 0. And I'm going to change this chart here to not start from 0 so you can understand why. And to do that, I'm going to click on the chart, click the plus sign, and get over to more options for the axes. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make sure I select vertical axis. And then I'm going to update the minimum from 0 to 25,000. And remember, with a bar chart, you're asking the audience to compare the length of the bars. And with the axis starting at 25,000, the user perceives that the Kroger bar is 3 or 4 times longer than the farmer's market bar. But when you set this back to 0, you can see that Kroger is actually just twice as large as farmer's market, but the non-zero axis was distorting your perception. So moving on to our last bar chart topic, you might want to compare your bars to something like a revenue goal to see how your business is performing to target. So let's walk through how you would do that. So the first thing you need are goals, which I already have. So I'm going to put the goals in the column next to the sales numbers. And now I'm going to click on the chart. I'm going to go up here to select data, and I'm going to re-highlight the range to include the goal. And then I'm going to click OK. And now you see the sales goals are stated in columns next to the actual sales. But if you want to do this more elegantly, you can convert the goal columns to a line chart. So right click on the goal and select Change Series Chart Type. And so now we want a combo chart with actual sales in columns and the goal in a line. So this looks good. And we're going to click OK. Now we have a line chart for our sales goals, but there's still a couple more things we can do. So instead of a line, we're going to add a symbol to represent the goal. So right click on the line and select Format Data Series. And we're going to click on the little paint icon. We're going to click on Marker and expand our marker options. And we're going to click on Built-in. And I like this line right here. And then the last thing you can do is go back here to Line, and you can hide the line. So now you have these tick marks acting as your sales goal, and you can easily see how close you are to achieving your goals. And that's all we're going to cover for bar and column charts, and let's move on to line charts. Line charts are great for showing trends over time. To enter a line chart, highlight the data, navigate up here to Insert, and select Line. With a line chart, we're going to add average sales. So I'm quickly going to take the average of the sales up here, and place it in the row below. And now I'm going to click on the chart, go up here to Charts Design, and update the select data to include the average line. And now I'm going to click OK. And you can go ahead and format the average line so the user knows that it's different. So I'm going to right click on the average line and go to Format Data Series. When I click over here to the paint icon, I'm going to keep it as the same color, but I'm going to change it to a dashed line. And now the user knows that this line is different, in this case representing average sales. Now let's move on to Scatterplots. Scatterplots are great tools to display a linear relationship between two variables. To add a scatterplot, highlight the data that you want to plot, go up here to Insert, Charts, and select Scatter. Generally with scatterplots, the independent variable is on the x-axis and the dependent variable is on the y-axis. Temperature is the independent variable, and we use the independent variable to determine how well it predicts the dependent variable, in this case iced coffee sales, and that's plotted along the y-axis. And you can change the color and shape of this data series. If you right click on the data series and select Format Data Series, click over to the paint icon, select Marker, and expand marker options. And I'm going to change the marker to a plus sign. And there you go. There are a bunch of other options in this menu that I'm not going to cover, but feel free to poke around. So now let's finish with some general principles to keep in mind for any visualization. One thing to keep in mind when creating charts in Excel is the data ink ratio. This refers to the portion of the visualization's ink devoted to the display of data and information. And Excel does a pretty good job of optimizing the data ink ratio. But for example, Excel automatically includes a border for your charts. But a border is not devoted to the display of data information and thus reduces the data ink ratio. And you can remove the border by clicking on the chart, going up here to Format, and selecting No Outline. One thing Excel does not default to is a border around the legend. I recommend not adding a border to your legend because you're diluting the data ink ratio. Moving on to another best practice, color should be used to distinguish groups of data from one another, represent data values, and highlight important information. This scatter plot is using color correctly because each data point is the same color. Iced coffee sales. So avoid the temptation to vary colors by paint, and this makes the chart much harder to read. Make sure your color has a clear purpose. As a best practice, you should avoid 3D figures. So when you highlight a data, you go to Insert, you click on Bar, avoid the 3D sections. For the sake of example, I'm going to add a 3D chart, and you can see that you should avoid 3D because it distorts the chart and its values, which makes it harder to read. And the 3D is not adding to the user's understanding of the data. Thank you for tuning in. The best way you can help me out is to add a comment below and let me know what other videos do you want to see from me. Thank you so much for leaving a comment, and I'll see you next time. So if you made it all the way to the end, I want to share what might be the worst visualization of all time. It's a 3D pie chart with way too many slices, and it's rotated in such a way that really distorts the size of the slices. And the background is this awesome mid-90s sand color, and the legend has some pretty ridiculous formatting itself that brings no additional understanding of the visual. So if you take nothing else from this video, make sure you avoid something like this.